Here with reaction, Fox News contributor Ari Fleischer, former senior advisor to President Trump, Stephen Miller, Outkick founder Clay Travis is with us. Ari, we'll start with you tonight. Okay, so these charges are made against Herschel Walker. He's responded to them. Other charges have come out in the course of the campaign. He has been pretty open about his personal struggles, wrote about them extensively. That part isn't a surprise. All's fair in love, war, and politics. I think you would agree. It's a fair fight. But the media isn't telling the Warnock part of the story. The accusation of running over his wife, not paying child care, obstructing an investigation into child abuse. That would seem to matter if you wanted to be even-handed, wouldn't it?
And they didn't tell it in 2020 either, and they're not telling it now in 2022. It's so easy to be a Democrat. When you're a Democrat, Sean, and the press covers you, you get to start every inning with a man on second base. If you're a Republican, you get to start every inning with 2 strikes. If you're Donald Trump, you start every inning with 2 outs, the way the media covers you. And that's the advantage Democrats have going in. The advantage Republicans have is that these polls are largely wrong. Republicans stopped talking to pollsters for a lot of the reasons you're talking about. There's just a lack of trust in pollsters as there is in the press. And so Republicans have stopped talking to them. I think a lot of these polls, you can probably add 2 to 3, 4 percentage points to the Republican score. And that's probably a closer read on what's happening in these elections.
You know, Stephen Miller, then you got to look at the positions. All right, both candidates, I guess one can arguably say, have baggage, questions. But then there's a big difference in terms of where they will vote. You got Raphael Warnock, wants court packing, wants to end cash bail, has compared the police to gangsters, saying they have a gangster and thug mentality. We know that he wants to move away from all fossil fuels. He said that many times. He wants critical race theory taught in school. We know that he said about the opioid crisis, it's only a public emergency because the faces of the human tragedy are white and suburban. No restrictions on abortion. Interesting, considering that's a controversy with Herschel Walker, and all the other things that we've talked about. So my question is, what are the people of Georgia thinking tonight, and what should they be thinking about tonight?
Georgia is a conservative state. Georgia is a religious state. Georgia is a state, whether you are black, white, brown, it is a state of traditional common sense values. Raphael Warnock is an extremist, as you've laid out, point by point. Abortion up until the 9th month, defunding police and allowing violent criminals to lay waste to entire communities, supporting Biden's inflationary agenda that is hammering working families, being in favor of open borders and voting for open borders time and time and time again, supporting critical race theory, supporting radical gender ideology. 90% of people in Georgia reject his values. And so this is a race about the issues. And if it's framed as a race about the issues, then he is going to lose by a gigantic margin.
But is it a race really in the minds of the people in Georgia, Clay, in this sense? They're being inundated with never-ending attacks on one candidate. And by the way, that's part of the political process. Everybody's got to accept that. You jump in that arena, that's what you're jumping into, an Adam Schiff hole. That's the bottom line. That's what politics is today. But the other part of it is the media chooses to tell only the story of one candidate, but not the other candidate. That's my beef.
Yeah, I think you're right, Sean. And I actually think when you look at the way this is going to play out, the media, who's written these stories? The New York Times sent a white guy down to Wrightsville, Georgia, to write a front page story on Sunday about how Herschel Walker wasn't black enough. A white New York Times reporter. You want to talk about incredible arrogance from outside the state of Georgia? They sent him in. Look what happened on Monday. The Daily Beast does a hit piece on Herschel Walker. The fix is in. And the reason why this is happening, Sean, is because Georgia is the Democratic Senate firewall. So I want all Georgians to listen to me really carefully right now. You may well decide whether Joe Biden controls the Senate or not, whether cackling Kamala Harris is going to be able to break ties or not. Georgia in January of 2021 did not make the right decision because there was still a lot of fallout from this election. You know Herschel Walker. You know Joe Biden, the worst president in our nation's modern history. 60% of Georgians do not like Joe Biden. Raphael Warnock is a rubber stamp for everything Joe Biden wants to do. Herschel Walker is imperfect, as all four of us are imperfect, as every single person watching us is imperfect. But he's a lot better than Joe Biden, and he's a lot better than Raphael Warnock.
Does
you
it come
cannot
down
allow
to that?
Joe Biden to get another rubber stamp. You can't do it.
Does it matter if people believe Herschel Walker or not, Clay?
They know Herschel. That's the thing. That's the thing I love. You lived in Georgia. Sean, there isn't a person in Georgia who doesn't already know Herschel Walker. And that's why Democrats are so desperate right now. They spent $50 million running the worst ads that have ever been created, telling everybody there that Herschel Walker's an awful human being. And the vast majority of Georgians said, I just don't believe it. I've known this guy since he came to play for the Georgia Bulldogs in 1980. I respect the fact that he stood up for Donald Trump, his friend, which is how he got into politics in the first time. Does he have issues in his family? Yes. But you know what, Sean? I was raised a Southern Baptist, and what we were taught early on is that redemption is there. There is always the possibility for forgiveness, and that is the heart of every Georgian. Herschel Walker's going to win this race, and Democrats are desperate because deep down they know it's happening, and they're throwing every single thing they have at him. But I think it's actually going to end up bouncing back onto them because they know Herschel, and they're not going to be able to convince Georgians that he's a worse choice than Joe Biden's rubber stamp, Reverend Raphael Warnock.
Let's look at the rest of the country. 33 days is Election Day, Ari Fleischer. Obviously, a 41-year high of inflation is going to be on every voter's mind. Obviously, record high gas prices will be on everybody's mind. The disaster at the border will be on everybody's mind. But what seems to be emerging as well is record high crime, the defund, dismantle, no bail mentality of the Democratic Party, and also the issue of education and parental role as it relates to their kids' education and the values that are taught in school and the failure of so many school systems. How big will, of all those issues, what should Republicans be talking about the most, or all of the above?
Well, I think crime is certainly a big issue, particularly in the suburbs, particularly where there are people who just, the drug problems are just manifest. But everything you just cited, Sean, what separates those from issues like Medicare or Social Security or the deficit, issues of previous decades, is how tangible they are in our daily lives. When you talk about education, when you talk about the shape of our schools, when you talk about what's being taught in schools, when you talk about crime, when you talk about the cost of buying food, the cost of filling your car with gas, the cost of heating your house or cooling your house, every one of those is a daily tangible problem. And that transcends politics. That's why it's such a powerful Republican cycle. In addition to the fact that it's the first midterm, historically presidents and their party in power loses big numbers of seats in their first midterm. Add all that up. It's still, I think, Sean, a wave election. What that means is Republicans will take the House. There's no question about it. Nancy Pelosi's gone. I think the Senate remains a 50-50 Senate. And if I'm right about the polling being still tilted toward the Democrats, it means it's much more likely Republicans will take the Senate 51-49 or perhaps 52-48 when it all nets out. I think that's the greatest likelihood on Election Day. It is still a powerful Republican cycle.
Steve, let's talk about the messaging that these candidates ought to be bringing into their states, their districts. What should they be telling them, and what should they be campaigning on?
Well, that's exactly the right question to be asking, Sean. There's 30 days until this election. How are Republicans going to bring this thing home? You see the mud they're slinging at Herschel Walker while covering up Raphael Warnock's horrendous past. Republicans need to look at the American people and say, do you want a secure border or no border? Do you want to have low inflation or runaway inflation? Do you want to have safe streets or blood-soaked crime hellholes? Do you want to have great schools for your children, or do you want your kids to be indoctrinated? Do you want your kids to be subjected to critical race theory and forced gender transitions? You frame it around these quality of life issues. You frame it around these fundamental issues of right and wrong, of good and evil, and this election will be won by a historic margin. But it's up now to the Republicans to prosecute the case against the overwhelming media bias that Ari has laid out.
All right. Thank you all. Clay Travis, thank you. Steve Miller, thank you. And, of course, Ari, thank you. Coming up, hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.